I'll make sure that I only use my office for work purposes then, and not to store my Lamborghini. Um, what are some of the top expenses that small businesses often file as a deduction? You've talked about some of them, but
So office expense is always a good one. So like office supplies, a lot of businesses you utilize that. And then now, because a lot of people are working remotely, I'm seeing dues and subscription fees go up to pay for all this software we're using, like your Zoom fees, or if you're paying for like Adobe Pro or your NetSuite subscription, all of those fees are deductible as well. So those are like the big ones, and the ones I see more common use of.
even even like maybe like Headspace to get me more calm for all these Zoom calls.
Well, there could be an argument for being able to deduct headspace, especially if you have employees and you are trying to help keep them in productive, elevated states so that they don't feel stressed and reduce their anxiety. So I could make an argument for that in front of the IRS.
Okay, well, I'll make sure to call you when I before I do. Were there any new tax breaks in the stimulus bill that will help small business filers?
So a couple of things came up that got me super excited. So if you don't know, there were like three major legislations passed last year. The latest one being passed in December the 27th. So us tax pros are like scrambling to learn it. But there is a what we call an over the line $300 charitable deduction that was passed, and I was excited about that because in the past, in order to be able to write off your donations to charities, you had to do what's called itemize your deductions. And now individuals and married couples can write up to either 300 if you're single or 600 if you're married. Right on that front page of the 1040, you don't have to itemize to be able to write that off for charity. So I think that's exciting. The other thing that came about is there is a credit, the family sick and medical leave pay is reported on Form 7202 that is available for self-employed people if they were impacted by the coronavirus, whether they had to take care of some family members or they got sick themselves. So those are a couple of credits that came about that I think people are going to really be able to take advantage of, especially due to the pandemic.
Gotcha. Okay. Fabulous. And are there any special records that I need to keep track of for this tax season?
Always keep your receipts. I will say this over and over and over again. Keep documented records of your transactions. I personally love using my cell phone to snap a picture of them and saving them on a folder right on my computer, just because over time the ink on the paper will disappear, and then we have email for our online purchases. So make sure you're saving a copy of those emails. I like to print them as PDFs and again save them in a folder. But you definitely should be keeping track of those receipts. If you were impacted by the coronavirus at all, make sure you're keeping record of your doctor's notes or any school closures if you have to take care of children or family members or if your business was shut down. So make sure you're keeping record of those state orders as well, because that will come into play if ever it's called into question if you're eligible for some of these new deductions.
That is a great point. Well, we're going to open it up to some questions from the audience or those tuning in. If you still have questions, keep commenting. We'll get to as many as we can. All right, first up, we have a question from Megan who says, thanks for covering this. She has a quick question. How does the structure of my business impact my taxes and my tax deductions that I can take?
That is a great question. So, first off, based on the structure or your entity type, you need to know specifically which tax form you need to complete. So, partnerships and S corps and corporations file different tax returns and have different due dates. So, partnerships and S corp returns are due March 15th. The items that you get to deduct will generally be the same as long as it's ordinary and necessary. It's just your reporting form and your timeline will be different. Also, like in partnerships, you'll have to, there are some requirements to get that information to the individual partners on time so they can file their personal tax returns too. So that is really huge, knowing what your entity structure is and the due dates of your tax returns.
Got it. Now, the next question we have is, are the costs of masks and other things, supplies that you might buy for COVID-19, are those tax deductible?
Absolutely. We all want to stay safe. So those expense items at this time are considered ordinary and necessary to maintain the safety of you, your employees, as well as any of your customers. So absolutely.
And since we were talking about Lamborghinis before, does that include the Louis Vuitton mask that I bought?
That seems a little excessive. I know that some people have luxurious taste here, but again, we want to make sure that it's ordinary and necessary. So if your brand is uh, excessive and lavish, then maybe we can make an argument for it. But the average person, the average small business, will not be able to justify the cost of a Louis Vuitton uh, face mask.
Wow, you even said it right. Okay. Um, the next question is, are the business grants I received for my business during the pandemic, if I filed for one of the grants, are they, what do I do with those in terms of that income to my business and how I account for it on my taxes?
That is another great question. So, grants will usually have specific language whether they are taxable or not. So, you want to make sure you're checking with that particular grant whether or not it's non taxable or if it's taxable. It should tell you. Good thing in that new bill that passed December 27th, the EIDL grant is now non-taxable on the federal side. You do have to check your state laws as well too, because some of the states are not following federal rules. I won't call out any state in particular, California, but but you want to make sure you're checking the grant terms to see if it's taxable or non-taxable, and keep a running list. So if you're working with a tax professional, make sure you give them a list of the actual grants you received, the amounts, so that if they need to, they can do some research as well.
Fabulous. Well, that is all we have time for today. Any final reminders, since we're kind of in this heat of tax season right now?
The final reminder is 1099 miscellaneous forms have now been replaced with 1099 NECs for independent contractor payments. They are due on February 1st. So make sure, if you haven't already, you scramble and get those done. Follow the rules. Make sure you're following a new form, 1099 NEC. And that is like the last thing I need to make sure we all know, because today is what, January 28th?
That's right. That's right. I got to go check and make sure I got all my forms ready. Nayo, thank you so much as always for joining us.
Thanks again for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here. I'm always excited when you guys invite me. So thanks again.
All right. Well, as always, a big thanks to all of you for tuning in. We will be back next week with Rami Ali to discuss another hot topic, scenario planning, and we're going to talk about the development process. That will be happening on Tuesday, February 2nd at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'll see you then.